So the sky in your video looks boring. Well, let's fix it. I'm going to show you how to turn this into this. My name is Murray. Consider subscribing, stick around for the future, and leave a like because YouTube has been recommending my videos recently. That would be appreciated. Let's jump in. Real quick, future Murray here. If you're not interested in doing this yourself, or you just don't have After Effects or Premiere Pro or any other visual effects program, Fiverr has great options for you. There's some artists there, link down in the description. Feel free to use that, and you can get it done all for you. You don't have to worry about a thing. It's super easy. Feel free to use that link. If you do, it supports the channel, and I really appreciate that. All right, let's jump in. Okay, so once you've fired up After Effects, I've imported my footage and I've created a new sequence 1920 by 1080 at 23.976 frames per second. First, I'm going to drag my main clip in, and you can see this is just the main clip. I'm going to trim my composition here, drag it down, and right click and trim to work area. And then I'm also going to drag in my stock footage underneath, which is the clouds. First thing I'm going to do is go to the Effects and Presets tab and type in Key Light. Then with the screen color picker tool, I'm going to select the color I want to key out. In this case, it's the sky. And already it does a pretty good job, but there is some gradients here that we don't like, or some artifacts. So we want to get rid of that. So I'm going to toggle screen matte, and then I'm actually going to go up to view and I'm going to do screen matte. That way I can see what I'm actually cutting out and what I'm keeping. One useful rule here to remember is that black conceals and white reveals. So essentially anything that's black is going to be transparent, and anything that's white is going to stay in the video. You can see that the sign on the brick wall is black or somewhat black. Part of it is being keyed out. Obviously we don't want that, but I'll show you how to fix that later. Increase the clip black. Don't do it too much because you can see it cuts into the wall and the trees as well. And then we're going to reduce the clip white. That way we actually have more of that in the shot. And we can always clean up the edges later. Screen shrink / grow will determine if you increase or decrease the amount of pixels around the objects. So for example, if you take it up to 1, you will see an outline of the blue sky that you've keyed out around all the objects. If you take it to -1, it'll cut away just a little bit of the actual pixels that are not being keyed out. So just as an example, if I take this screen shrink / grow down to -5, you can see it actually cuts away too much of the pixels that I actually want in the shot. So I'm going to take that up to -1. And then I'm just going to take the screen softness down to something like -6. You could take it down to 2, it just depends on your situation, just because the edges were too harsh for me. Then we go to foreground color correction, and we're just going to enable color core. That way we can actually change some of the saturation, contrast, and brightness. Tweak it to however it looks good for you, because your situation is going to be different. You're going to have different colors and a different scene. Just don't overdo it. It's easy to overdo it. One thing to keep in the back of your mind is that you can actually wash out the image a little bit, so that when you add a final color grade on top of everything, it'll be easier to blend it in. So I try and keep the brightness, contrast, and saturation similar to the sky. That way when I add a final complete color grade on top, it'll affect it in a very similar way. That way it looks like it's part of the scene. Next, I'm going to go ahead and enable color correction. This again is also going to depend on how you shot the scene, your exposure, sharpness, and all that kind of jazz. Basically tweak this to make it look good. But one important tool here is the saturation. If I take the saturation up, you can see it makes the outline of the trees a little less bright or obvious. You can see here, if I take it down to 100, it looks a little worse than before. So we're going to take that up because that looks way better. It might be slightly different in your situation. It just takes a bit of messing around because we all shoot our shots in different ways, and there's different situations for everything. But you can see if I enable and disable this effect, it makes quite a significant difference. But you can see after all of our color correction and keying, the car in this shot looks terrible because it was blue or a similar color to the sky that we keyed out. Don't worry, we're going to fix that in just a minute. We're going to do the same thing for the sign on the brick wall because that's also been keyed out a bit. Next, we're going to right click in our composition, do new adjustment layer. That way we can actually add a color grade to the whole scene, make things look good. Usually I'll be doing my color grading in Premiere Pro, so I would skip this step if I'm going to be in Premiere Pro and I want to use the Lumetri color in there because it's a lot more accurate and you can do a lot more. But for the sake of the tutorial, we've created this adjustment layer. Go to the Effects and Presets tab, drag on the curves. Let's add a bit of a contrast curve here, and you can always go into red, blue, green channels and tweak those individually. But we're not going to focus too much on that. Just going to show you how to blend them a little bit. Next, duplicate your main shot, delete the key light off of that shot. You can see it goes back to normal. What we're going to do is grab the pen tool with G on your keyboard, and we're going to drag around the frame here, or the brick wall, also including the car because the car looked terrible with the color grade in the previous clip. And then we're also going to drag around all the way so that we actually have the whole bottom part of the frame that we're keeping, because remember the sign on the wall was keyed out as well as the car. So I'm going to make sure I keep those in this mask. I'm going to be a little precise, but I can tweak it later as well. Make the final adjustments, and then what you're going to do is go to the layer, press M on your keyboard, it'll bring up the mask, and then you can go to the tracker tab and you can track forward. This will track the mask in the shot because the shot is moving, it's not one frame. And feel free to stop the track every time the mask gets lost. Usually it doesn't happen, but occasionally it can. And then keep going until the end of the clip. Don't forget that if you started halfway through the clip, go to the first keyframe and track backwards as well to make sure that this mask is tracked throughout the whole shot. Alright, once the tracking is done, we can refine the mask. You can see if I turn this layer on and off, there's a sharp line that you can notice, and obviously we don't want that. You can see here it's pretty obvious in this corner. So toggle down the mask and we're going to increase the feather significantly until that hard surface is gone, or that hard cut. However, you can see there's the blue part of the sky showing through, so we're going to subtract the mask expansion. That way we can take it back into the pixels that we actually have and not the sky. You can see if you go the other direction, it'll show more of the sky. So you don't want to go that way, obviously. And after your final tweaks, you have your result. Now is the part where you subscribe. Thanks. Stick around for the future. Also, I stream on Twitch. Come say hi. Remember, keep smiling, keep shooting. Alright, go ahead and talk. Hello.
Hello?
Go!
Hello?
I heard that.
Oh, golly.
Spider.
You just blew my ears out.
You should have been standing.
Oh my gosh, dude. I didn't know that was the problem, so I was like, is that it? Alright, talk again.
Spider.
No, talk normal, you dingus. Okay, I got you.